Jillian, welcome.
Thank you so much.
I am I'm so happy to be with you having this conversation. I'm so glad you said yes. I just want to say to you, I have been living with your book for a couple of
Mm.
weeks now, and I I really do feel like it is significantly helping me quiet down and make better choices. I wrote to you, I said, this is like a forever part of my toolkit
Mm.
from now on.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm could not be happier that it has resonated.
Yeah. Yeah. It's we're going to get to the book, but I'll just say,
Mhm.
yeah, it's so important at this moment to be to have this book in my hands, and I want it in many people's hands
Mm.
because you said actually that it is like pausing is the medicine for our times, and I I feel that it's particularly so about this time. And so we're going to get into that, but I have some questions for you first. All right.
Mhm. Mhm.
Actually, today, Jillian, the moon's in Scorpio, and Jillian has a moon in Scorpio too. So I was really happy to see that. I was like, "Ooh, we
Mm.
get to we get to go deep. We get to have a delicious conversation." So for those of you that don't know Jillian, I would love for you to tell us how did you find yoga? How did yoga find you? Just give
Mm.
us a tiny little, sense of how this 30-year journey began.
Tiny. Okay.
Or not, or big, or vast. I don't
Um, well, it had, we'll say, sprinklings of seeds in my very young years. The first introduction, and it's also in my book, is an accidental introduction when I was about 9. My mother and father had a very tumultuous relationship. And one of the ultimatums my mother gave my father was marriage counseling or TM meditation. And so the whole family got initiated. It didn't last very long, but I got my mantra. I had a practice probably for several months, and it did stick with me. Like I became um, somebody who relied on that mantra for till this day. Um, that was like a peek into the world that I would eventually come to know very deeply and intimately. When I was a teenager, my mother would bring me to yoga classes here and there, sprinkled, but always at like the fitness, like the European Health Spa or the American Woman Fitness Center. Always as um, I don't know, just like a fitness thing to do. Fast forward, I was an athlete. I
Mm,
played collegiate soccer. I ran a
mhm.
marathon. I was a fitness instructor from 86 to 96. Think step aerobics, think grapevine.
Yes.
Um, and I was also a strong headed publishing person, aspirations to go deep into publishing. And I started right out of college and moonlit at my gym at night. And I was on this very fast path, and I had a sort of emotional crisis that, as they often do, coupled with a health crisis. And I found my way to the yoga studio next door to my studio, probably next door to my St. Martin's Press, my building, the Flatiron building in the middle of Manhattan. And I think, I guess, this is if I was 9 when I had to peek in, and then in my teenagers, it wasn't really till I was about 24 that I took my first real, like that I chose to step in and really experience a practice. And it was literally like coming home. It
Wow.
was it was a huge, deep practice that ended with a um, puddle of tears around me in Shavasana. And from that day, at the time, I was, and to say type A would be you know, pretty appropriate.
Yeah.
But so from that day, I went back 7 days a week for 3 years before I started
Wow.
studying to teach. Yeah. And it wasn't until maybe 8 years into a regular deep yoga practice that I had my first panic attack. It was like I had to strip away so many layers to get to what really brought me in the door. And it was under all those layers a tremendous amount of pain, grief, um, disappointment, fear, all the big emotions that we all carry that I was really good at stuffing down deep in my body. And when they finally emerged through the form of panic, when panic finally opened the door for them and anxiety, then my yoga practice shifted into a healing practice. And from that time forward, it became the place I really learned how to pause. And by pausing, I don't just mean stopping or napping. I mean really coming home to be with myself while I was experiencing things out in the world.
Mm. S- I could just keep listening.
Mhm.
No, I hear so deeply, Jillian has Virgo rising, right? You have Virgo rising, and it's such it's such a Virgo journey,
Mhm.
Virgo rules yoga, Virgo rules healing, Virgo rules anxiety and all the things that get brought to the surface, but it just feels like what I love so much about this book is that you use this Virgo energy of taking things piece by piece by piece, like slow. This is what I just felt in the last few minutes. Just like
Mhm.
the minute you start to speak, we slow down. And I find you deeply trustworthy. And this book sort of takes your hand and says, here's step one, right?
Mhm.
I love to be instructed
Mhm.
instructed with love, right, the steps along the way. um
I appreciate that you um, sort of name it as steps. And the reason is because we head into any kind of healing journey or anything we want to improve or achieve almost from the end point.
yeah.
And I have experienced that no matter what it was I have longed for, whether it was personal evolution or some sort of trophy, it is all in the laying of the foundation and going layer by layer towards something. But I've also learned that understanding is often taking off a layer at a time to get more and more clear. But either way, whether we're going forward or getting deeper, like it is a process. And many of us just want to get right to the thing, which I think slows down our ability to really get where we want to go.
Mm. Mm. I really respond to that idea of taking off. We're always like marching forward, but the greatest healings in my life or the greatest growth has always, I think, occurred from a letting go, and which is what I feel. And when you talk about landing, and we're going to get to that in a
Mhm.
second, but that's what I always feel like is like, oh, I'm just taking something off. But I like what you brought up about taking time. And I want to presence the fact that you have walked with Pema Chödrön for 25 years, right? You've been a teacher in all of her workshops at Omega. And I'm just thinking about both of us. We've been doing this for 30 years. We've been teaching and working. And there's something about lineage, and there's something about like what we have built up over time, like, or what has entered us over time that could only enter us over step by step by step by step. And I just wonder, before we plunge into the book, is like, what are you carrying from those 25 years with Pema Chödrön, and like what have you received and are continuing to give,
Mm,
having walked
yeah.
this way? Yeah.
Yeah. So I do need to begin by saying I taught the yoga
Yes,
classes,
yes, yes, yes,
just to
yes, yes. I should have
clarify.
articulated that
No,
better.
that's okay. I just, I have such deep reverence for her teachings that I don't want to misconstrue that. Um, well, I will say, sitting in workshop with her, sitting in retreat with her, sitting in meditation with her, receiving the teachings and meditating, and within minutes having to then leave the closing of that portion of the retreat and move into the yoga studio with all of the others who just sat through that to get a chance to sort of digest her teachings, to give language, embodiment language, somatic language to what she just taught, so that the yoga complemented the experience and helped us bring it into our body more. The person, me, being the one to have to create that translation. It's like when somebody, translates a language from one language to the other. I was translating that from verbal cueing, cerebral meditation language into somatic embodiment feeling language. And that is how I came to understand her teachings, which and really be able to write this book, in the sense that, for me, body language is the way I really remember things. Um, but what I am carrying, I'll say the great news that I'm carrying, which was, one, a disappointment, and B, the biggest, a disappointment, and B, the biggest relief I ever got in my life, was from the time I started studying with her, which was like 1997, until her last live workshop, which I think was 2023. She said every single time we gathered, and she had already been a master, at that time. This was right at the beginning, was when she wrote the book, When Things Fall Apart. She always emphasized there's never a day when the practice is done. You wake up, you choose, you begin again. You can lose it, you are welcome back, you begin again. That she still gets big feelings, that she still feels very reactionary, that is still a choice to practice. It's not like the meditation all of a sudden made those things go away and now they're no longer um, part of our human experience. And one, it was like, oh, at the very beginning, when everybody's meditating, we think, oh, if we just do this, life will get easier, feelings will get easier. I'm not going to lose my shit all over the place all the
Yeah.
time. I'm going to, be calm with my kids. I'm going to treat my partner with exquisite generosity. I'm going to hold every door open for every stranger. We have this idea of ourselves that we're going to be good and right and well. And like, that's just not it at all.
Mm,
And that was the biggest relief, because then I didn't have to strive to become something.
mm,
And from the very beginning, I really did learn that the practice is choosing to practice every day. And that the mindfulness and the wisdom and the ability to respond instead of react is a moment to moment practice,
mm,
no magical day when we're done, which is both like, oh, really? But once you really start practicing and it becomes not only a skill, we'll call it, but it's just there for you, even when you forget, right? So, like, I'm
mm.
practicing now over 30 years. Don't ask my family, like how calm or relaxed I am. Like, I lose it, and I talk about this in the book.
Yes.
But I have a very quick recovery. compared to where I used to hold on to my righteousness, if not for the day, for 2 weeks, if not for 2 weeks, for a month. Um, it felt better to be angry and right than it felt to be relaxed and back in conversation. But that no longer feels good. And so
Mm.
my willingness to step back into where I may not have been as skillful as I wanted to is quite um, a nice turnaround. If I don't have a chance to catch it while I'm in it.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably my biggest um, blessing that I carry from
Mm.
practicing with her.
Mm.
Permission to begin again, permission to be human, permission to know that practicing is a lifestyle.
Well, your book is infused with that, and uh, that is palpable in the book. I felt this, yeah, again, permission to start afresh, to begin again, and it was almost like there were parts of the book that felt like whispers and. Like every time you invited us into a practice, it built on the last practice, but it was so soothing to hear things again. I think sometimes we underestimate the power of repetition. Like, no, we're going back to the beginning. We're going back to the beginning. And each time we go back to the beginning, it just feels like such a deep relief. So sometimes I think with a book, we're like, okay, well, what's the next chapter? What's new about the next chapter? And what I felt about this book is it's like, no, 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 no. Yes, chapter two, but I'm weaving in everything from chapter one. I'm going to remind you so that it's in your body, do you know? And in
Yeah,
fact,
yeah,
I want to ask you because you said at one point in the book, you said that you almost called it "Stay at the Table." Was that the title?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That was the
yeah.
working title.
And I mean, you've already sort of articulated that a bit, but why was that almost the title?
Yeah. So it was actually the title before that story emerged.
It
And it was,
was.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's why it was such a big deal in the book. But it was a story stay at the table because my urgency to write this book was really, well, it was born out of the fact that come 2020, I went online to teach. Like my teaching went from, traveling around the country and live classes to being an online studio. And my audience exponentially grew and varied. And every state, I really worked with people in every state, in every color state, and people who are surrounded by very difficult conversations, and myself included, when our families are having a difficult time seeing eye to eye right now, and especially, in the past decade. The people closest to us, we're trying to figure out how do we have hard conversations, whether it be politics or social or just, we're carrying so much chronic stress and we're all coming to a conversation equally stressed, which doesn't make room for the conversation to serve growth for anybody. Um, so it was born out of taking the tool of mindfulness into daily moments of our lives, very specifically in the hopes that if we each could pause and feel what we're carrying inside and care for ourselves and hold space and just breathe and regulate within ourselves, then how we meet each other changes. There's room for conversation, there's room for understanding, and the thought of being at the table with each other and wanting to have at least a conversation of understanding, if not agreement, at least a conversation where we don't feel more separate, but at least we could all stay at the table and have some level of connection with our diversity.
Mm.
It was Stay at the Table, sounded like a good title. And I handed in the manuscript about, you know, Thanksgiving time, or the proposal. It was the proposal, and that was the working title, Stay at the Table. And like the month I handed it in, sure enough, it was Thanksgiving. And it was the night after our big Thanksgiving dinner, and I was at the table with my mom and my daughter, and I lost it. And
Yeah.
it's marched my dramatically marched my way out of the kitchen and up to my refuge of a bathroom and realized, oh my God, I'm the one who left the table.
Oh my
And
gosh.
the fact that the book was that title, it was like, okay, I know how to pause. Like it was a great slap in the face in the funniest of ways. But yeah, it motivated me like, this is my perfect opportunity. I just came upstairs. I have to go back downstairs. Let me practice.
And then you went back and wove it into the book in this most extraordinary way that it just holds, it's woven through the whole book. So it was a real gift in a way.
No, it was a great gift. It was a great
Yeah.
gift.
I also just want to say, you were talking about with Pema Chödrön, you were saying that after she would offer her meditation, it was then your, you know, uh, opportunity to digest and then to find the language.
Mhm.
And I feel that so deeply about you. And again, I feel the Virgo energy come through because digest is a Virgo word, by the way, right? Because it rules our whole digestion, right? So like to digest an experience, like to and then, Jillian also has the sun in Gemini. And so that's building the bridge and finding the language. And even as you're talking about staying at the table, there's something in your astrological makeup that says, can we build a bridge? Can we find a way forward together? And
Mhm.
I believe, let's get into the first lar lar. We call it the pausing practice you've named LAR LAR, right?
Mhm.
LAR
Mhm.
LAR. And I think that first section of the practice is fundamental to build the bridge to
Yeah.
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 Um, so
So
would you walk us through it? Yeah, would you
yeah.
walk us through the first
Mhm.
part?
Yeah. So lar. The first lar is land, arrive, relax. The second lar is listen, attend, so we can respond. And most lineages, they might have been originally proposed differently, but in our modern teachings, when you learn meditation, when you learn mindfulness, often up until recently, when there's a lot more somatic experiencing infusing everything, when you learn stress reduction, when you learn relax, it's proposed like you could think your way into these things. Like you could think stress away, you could think yourself into relaxation, you could use your mind to make everything better, which you can, but in my experience, not without the foundation of being in your body and regulating your nervous system first, which then gives you access to the part of the mind neurologically, the prefrontal cortex, where you have then access to all sorts of creativity and big picture thinking and powerful intentional beliefs and prayer and such. But step number one, the first LAR, is the process of coming back into our bodies, down onto the ground, literally being in our body on the ground. And that may sound like, duh, aren't we always in our body on the ground? Like, no, we're not.
No.
I tell the story often is true. I could go to bed at night. I could lay down on my mattress. And within a few breaths, as I start to notice, I'm not letting the mattress hold my body weight.
Mm.
So we could be on a chair, and right now, in 3 breaths, I'll walk you through how you can really be on that chair. And so if you just imagine an hourglass or a sand timer, and you turn the hourglass of your body upside down. And on one breath, you imagine the sand draining down from your head to your shoulders. And on the next exhale, from your shoulders down to your pelvis. And on one more exhale, let your body weight land on the ground, on the seat, on the floor. So you let yourself really be in the spot where you actually are here now.
I mean, even that is, this first step is so profound. I feel it so palpably, and I feel it as um, an answer to so many years of striving up and out, and so
Yeah.
many years of if I only think it, as you said. And I find it so fascinating, and you know that, and so perfect that relax is the third step,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody just goes around and says relax,
Mm-hmm.
relax, relax, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so from that place of like feeling the beauty of gravity and the relief of gravity, then you say we arrive.
All right. Mm-hmm. So I just want to add is we can't neurologically, physiologically relax unless our mind gets the message we're safe to do so.
Mm,
We can't use the part of our brain that expands in curiosity and awe and wonderment, and unless it's safe enough to do so. And if we're not supported, if we're not held, if we don't sense our body against something that will catch us if we fall, and trust that it's actually there, and allow ourselves to rest into it, then we're always going to be protecting ourselves a little bit. And the relaxation and the big picture thinking, we won't have access to it in the way that we are looking for. So we land on the ground to begin to send a message we are supported. Like we would, babies need to be held. The human body needs to know it is held. The earth holds us all, our body on the earth's body. And then as we land, tension automatically begins to soften a little bit. There becomes more room to allow the breath to arrive in our bodies. So if we just allow ourselves to let our mind arrive on the next three breaths, tracing the breath as it comes in to our clear upper hourglass, and tracing it as it goes out. And since the breath is only arriving in the present moment, as we attune to it, as we let our mind arrive on it, we naturally grow more present in this spot where we actually are. So we land, we arrive, and this breath then, as it grows fuller and deeper, it begins to send messages up our main wiring, our big shift, our big break, the vagus nerve, which deeply calms us, again, physiologically, neurologically. So we land on the ground for one breath. We let our mind arrive on the breath as the breath arrives in our body. And now it's a little bit easier to notice, oh, well, I'm still gripping or working or clenching my go-to spots. So we might start to begin to relax on purpose. For me, it's always my jaw. It's always my shoulders. So if you want to take 3 breaths just to relax your go-to areas, maybe your squinting muscles soften, maybe your jaw unhinges, maybe your shoulders fall away from your ears. So these first 3 steps land on the ground, which could be 1 breath, it could be 3 breaths. Allow the breath to arrive in your body. 1, 3 breaths. Relax on purpose. 1 to 3 breaths. I mean, technically, when you train in doing this regularly, you could do those 3 things on 1 breath. It's really like break the glass, it's right there. But pausing, this I consider the actual technique, the mechanism of how we pause. It's an intentional way of calming the body so that the nervous system can settle. The mind then becomes more clear, more accessible. Often, people will look at the power of the pause or hear this word pause and they just think, oh, I'm going to stop for a brief sec, or I'm just going to like not do something. This is an active way of intentionally calming ourselves.
Yeah, there's there's so much relief in the simplicity and intricacy of it. Do you know that again, it's not just stop, take a breath. But there is something about the simplicity of the fact that this could be done in 90 seconds, you
Yeah.
know, and that you could do this. And I have done it 12 times a day or something, do you know, that it can be done again and again. And it's also something, there's a simplicity in it that, sometimes when we have a practice, we have to be like, well, I've got to psych myself up to go do this or whatever. And it's like, no, 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 no. Just the minute it occurs to you to actually do the practice, there doesn't have to be any friction in the way of it. It's just like, I can start right now. So
Yeah.
there's something there's simplicity to it. And yet I just love being walked through or walking myself through the evolution of it because the arriving can't occur until you've landed and the relaxing can't occur till we've arrived. And like you said, I'm sure that they can start to happen very rapidly. But for me, still now, I can feel them palpably individually, and that's soothing to me.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to say a couple things. I see the chakra hearts behind you in our conversation. And what I don't share beyond this the regular audience of the book is that LAR was originally designed to help in my teacher training, to help my uh, teachers who were training with me have more tools to guide people into deeper states of relaxation and awareness in restorative poses. And it mirrors the chakra system and it mirrors the kosha system. So these aren't just, they weren't just good ideas that I came up with and nice language and good words. They fit, um, you know, they merge with the qualities of each kosha layer, and they were really born out of guiding people through the koshas, and it just
Mm.
became LAR as a way that I could help people remember it. And only years later, after using LAR as a tool to help people remember the steps of going through the koshas, did I find out that LAR means home in
Oh,
Portuguese, right?
oh, oh my gosh, come on.
I know. Talk about
Oh,
divine guidance.
oh,
So it's a deep coming home to ourselves that allows us to come home to our expansive selves together. which is the second lar. The first lar is a deep coming home into our embodiment with our biology and our physiology and our neurology as the wiring, right? So we're literally calming ourselves so that we can shift into that expansive, more boundless awareness that we also are, which for me is so much more possible and so much more intentional when I'm deeply embodied.
Mm,
Uh, and
mm,
so that's one thing I wanted to say about these steps. You know, they're not, here's a good idea of steps you can follow. They were born out of the koshas. So, like, we know this is how it goes. And the other thing I want to say about 90 seconds, it's not just that we can do this in 3 breaths, which we can, it's that there is neuroscience that shows us that when we have big emotions or a stress response or even an excitability, that the surge of hormones tied to that thought, to that reaction, the stress hormones that are tied to it has a 90-second lifespan. And if we are fascinated in conversation, if we disagree with it, if we try to prolong it through figuring it out, it is longer than 90 seconds. But if we let that stress hormone surge rise and metabolize or start to naturally dissipate or start to go through its normal digestive process, if we don't replay and ruminate and get involved in the conversation, then its lifespan is 90 seconds. So
mm.
the 90-second pause is in service of, in the end, if we can pause in a bigger experience and come back to ourselves and feel what we are feeling. This might require movement for some people. It's not stillness necessarily. We don't have to be frozen experiencing this. It could be shaking, it could be moving, it could be walking. But if we could be conscious and intentional about being in our body with our breath, relaxing on purpose, whether we're in stillness or movement, we not only feel what we're experiencing, but that process of that big feeling moves through us. And it leaves us more access to the part of our brain that can choose how to manage that emotion, how to manage that situation, how to respond, how to maybe not respond on purpose. Um, so the 90 seconds is in service of when we really need it most, but it only takes 90 seconds to practice.
Yeah. And I love, as you're saying that, I was just feeling into all the different textures of the 90-second pause, right? So it felt like we were building a bridge to the second lar in the sense of the pause at first is landing, and it's this more internal sort of setting, coming home to oneself, and then this bridge to listening. If somebody was the one that created this like stress by yelling at you or by saying something, you had a story in the book where a man had said something that was like, what? But then you opened to this listening place. And I think this is a good way to go into the second three, because it's like the listening is part of what is required to quiet down that, or to absorb, or to assimilate that,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
move the stress through. Yeah.
We listen um, based on the state of our nervous system, like how we listen,
Mm,
what we listen for, what we think we're hearing is
mm,
entirely dependent on if we're in the stress response or not,
mm,
what history we're carrying in our body, whether it's from the morning or from our grandparents, what kind of trauma and tension and experience and expectations. We don't very rarely have the capacity to listen openly with curiosity as if we don't know what we may learn.
Oh, it's so good. Please listen to that again, everyone.
and and
Yeah.
it's not a character fault and it's
Hmm.
not a personality trait and there's nothing wrong with you, me, or anyone else that we listen that way. That
Hmm.
is our design.
Hmm.
If we are stressed, carrying tension, whether that tension or trauma is again from the last phone call or from our great, great, great grandparents, we are listening through a lens that will limit and inhibit what we could really understand about the present moment or the other person. So if we don't do the first LAR, if we don't relax into our body, calm our nervous system, breathe deeply, there's really, what are we listening to? So we throw around these memes everywhere and these instructions everywhere and these wishes for each other. Can you just listen to me? Or like, you need to listen to your loved ones better. You know what? I'm really sorry, but if you're stressed, you can't. And guess what? The person you're listening to who's trying to communicate something to you, they're stressed too. So they're also communicating through that lens. When we do the first LAR, we begin to shift the possibility of how we listen.
Mm.
And, I love the Eastern language for words like listening and mind. The Chinese character for listening is not only the ear at the top, and one of the smaller graphic symbols in the word, and an eye. So it's not only what you hear, but what you see, but it is in the middle, your present awareness as a big one, all held by the heart.
Mm. Mm.
So listening is a heart practice. Calming ourselves and regulating before makes that possible. It also turns on the part of the brain that allows us to listen differently with curiosity and understanding. And maybe it's okay that we're not right. Attending is a self-compassion practice. And there's tons of awesome science put forth by many in the neuroscience field right now. And Kristen Neff is doing such a beautiful job, bringing this to us in the world about that's really becomes the difference about whether we will continue to be able to stay online listening and build and nourish the part of our brain that can stay online, or without it, we can very easily slip back into the listening defensively or protectively. So the hormones that are released when we have self-compassion, friendliness, warmth, attending to ourselves, not only the person we're listening to, but ourselves. There's a lot of hard conversations that if we could listen to without taking so personally, even other people's feelings about us, and we could soothe ourselves during that, or we could forgive ourselves for, I think there's so many things that we're carrying guilt or shame about, that having compassion for even that we feel that way is so important. That is the game changer for not only the hormones that can be released, like the bonding hormones like oxytocin and the serotonins, but the hormones that open up the brain for connection, for optimism, for I can stay here and collaborate with this. I'm not as in danger as I might have thought I was. And something we might come closer from this, listening with attending as tools we do in tandem are the game changers about why we want to go to the table again and how to stay at it. If we left, how to come back, or how to stay to begin with.
Mm.
Dr. Gail Parker, I'm going to say one more thing.
No,
Sorry,
no,
Dr.
please,
Gail
please, please.
Parker. She has this great line that she has said many times in conversations that I've had with her that I use myself all the time. Like, do you want to be right, or do you want to be in relationship?
Oh, oh, yes. Okay. Mm. Yeah, I was just going to say, I really hear the word tending in attending. Do you know, I hear it
Mhm.
through, you write a lot about self-compassion in the book as well. And like you said, how it releases all these beautiful hormones and oxytocin. So I just deeply heard the self-tending. Like, I think sometimes you do exercises with the listening where you're out in nature, right? And you're just listening to the sounds around you. But then it seems like the attending is somehow listening to the deepest language and sounds within, or
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I do turn it back to that in the book, and sort of one of my big takeaways that I make sure to or well, that I have a big hope that people leave with if they're joining me for anything. I always circle back to in one way or another how we meet ourselves will either leave us feeling more present and open in the present moment or more closed and shut down.
Mhm.
How we meet ourselves.
Well, it's always, yeah, I always think of Libra. When I think about Libra, I think about the first relationship has to be with the self before you can have the conversation across the table. I
Mhm.
think that's powerful. And that's where then the last response comes
Yeah.
from. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, the thing about response, it's funny, is like just having that word makes us think that, oh, well, then I'll be able to respond as if there is a specific response or
Mm,
I'll know how to respond. But I really take time to encourage us. We don't know if we're really doing the practice, we don't know how we'll respond in the
mm.
present moment. And that our responsiveness, or I love when I finally like realized response dash ability, you know,
Yes.
like our
Yes.
ability to respond. I don't know why it took me so many years to like see the gift in that word. Um, but, you know, if we have a flexible nervous system and we're truly embodied and allowing ourselves to access a more open, creative mind, then we might learn as we're doing it. We might be informed in the moment. We can't pre think or pre know how our response should be or could be, which gives us a lot of freedom. Like, to me, that's where life happens.
Mm, mm.
Everything
Yeah.
else is like, how do we control this thing? How do we do
Right.
the right thing? How do we get the right thing? How do we make sure it stays on the road? Um, So the practice really puts us in a state where our ability to see the moment more freshly, you know, we might have a response that we couldn't have dreamed up.
Mm,
We might choose not to respond where we used to be so habitual in responding.
mm,
We might be surprised that we're leaving the job that we thought was our dream job, or marrying the person that did not seem like it was the list of things your parents and everybody else told you was the right person for you, or just not sticking to our guns in an argument, you know, or all of a sudden it might be like, wow, I never thought about it that way.
mm.
And that might change
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. And in the story in the book where you have left the table and gone to the bathroom and like, been in this full reaction and then the recognition of, oh my gosh, I left the table. And then it feels like there's a series of responding in a way. Like it feels like one response got you out of the bathroom back downstairs. And then we can't know about all the responses until like you opened your mouth and said something to your daughter, and until she changed or softened, you didn't know how
Yeah.
it would unfold. In a way, it just feels like a series of the unknown series of responses.
Yeah, yeah. Like, you know, for those of us who like to walk in nature or hike,
Mm,
and
mm,
if we take a new trail, or if we're definitely in like a new part of geography where we've never seen stuff before, we're willing to go on that walk and open our eyes and just see everything for the first time and be awed and take in new sounds of animals and new smells of things that we haven't smelled before. If you're like in a, you know, across the country on that hike. I can't think of really anywhere else we do that in our lives, except if we're watching a movie and you're a person who doesn't try to predict like everything that's going to happen. But like if we're going to be in a conversation and we could be in it skillfully, right? Because if you're hiking, you have to be skillful and you want to, stay healthy on the path. And there's certain things you're not going to touch, and there's certain, you know, ways you're going to navigate that you become wise as you're doing it. But you still let the trail open up for you and you let yourself experience it as it happens. You couldn't know what's going to happen. You've never been on that trail before. You've never even seen that. I remember going to Northern California or Santa Barbara or somewhere for the first time, in the gardens that I saw, the succulents that I've just never seen in my life before. So when we're in a conversation, we are so limited by the way we want it to work out. When we have a job, a list of things to do, a plan to get through our house, a way we want the day to go, we don't walk through our day. Of course, there's lots of ways we have to stay in control, but that ability to be open to the present as it's happening is so minimized everywhere else in our lives. And it would really be a gift, not only to our brains and our rejuvenation and our energy, but the way we meet each other with less expectation and more freshness.
Mm, mm, that's beautiful. It makes me think too of how you say that pausing is an act of love. And you and I both love Rosemary Watola Traumer, and that the poem called The Question, where, is this the path of love? And it seems to me that if you are walking as you're walking in nature, and you are walking that way in your life, and you're holding that question, that only adds another layer of richness to it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like if we are holding that question in our heart
Yes,
and not
yes.
trying to figure it out, um, we have the ingredients that we need to navigate a less aggressive planet.
Yeah, and doesn't it feel like, oh, here is like, to me, this practice again, it's an act of love. It's so accessible to us. It's so possible. It's so possible. And if we could only, you know, if that was our act of generosity to make the world better, it would be a huge act. Yeah.
Amen. 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 Here's the truth, right? We know this. We get better at whatever we practice.
Mm.
And there are things that we repeat all day long. This is not a big thing to repeat. We have to make the choice to train in it. It's training. Like any other thing we want to get good at, whether it's doing yoga, playing piano, understanding the stars,
Mm.
whatever we want as our skill, we train in, we give our attention to. This is really simple. Or I should say, uncomplicated.
Yeah.
It requires intention. It requires a very little amount of time. We can do this while we're brushing our teeth. We can do this while we're at a red light. We can do this when we pick up our phone. We can do it before we open an app. We can do it before we hit send. Um, when we do it regularly, when we train in it regularly, 90 seconds, I don't know anybody who doesn't have 90 seconds several times a day. When we train in it regularly, it changes how we show up when we need it.
Mm.
It's there for us. Um, you know, I've told you this. I just putting out my book was a little stressful. And
Just a little, just a little.
I set my phone on 45-minute increments a day. In the book, it says 4 hours, but there are times when I need the reminder every 45 minutes.
Mm.
So my bell goes off. So I take 3 breaths. It goes off 45 minutes again. It's life-saving. Otherwise, not only do I not feel good, does the tension build in my body, Do I not breathe deeply? I lose energy. I lose resources. I don't wake up clear. Like, not only do I not feel good, but I assure you, nobody feels good around me. And, the people that I want to be really generous with, at least not snappy with,
Yeah.
they're just snapped at if I'm stressed. And so having that 45-minute reminder really is in service. Other times, every 4 hours, fine. But it's something that we really actually can even do on the hour.
Uh, and just to say, you can buy this book, which I did, or you gifted it to me, but you can buy the book and you can read one chapter and you already are on your way. Sometimes you feel like, well, I don't even know if I can read the whole book or whatever. You already have tools just dipping in. So I mean, it's a beautiful book. I hope you all will buy it.
Mm.
It's really extraordinary. And I have to say, Jillian, it's like just being with you for an hour, just having this conversation. Obviously, the work of your life pours through you, and my jaw's like, it's like letting go. It's like all the little parts of me just being with you in conversation. It's the practice has gifted me deeply through you.
Mm.
That's what I want to say.
Mm.
I'll ask you one more question because I've kept you already. But what are you, what are you thinking about playing with, experimenting with at this moment? Like, this is your expertise. You've written the book. Now what's your edge right now, or what are you exploring in your line of growth at this moment?
Um, I'm not preparing for life as much.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my God, please. I'll be your partner in that.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to let go of all the prep I do for everything.
Mm, mm,
And you inviting me here is a beautiful opportunity for me to begin that. And yeah, I thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much always for holding space for me in the,
mm.
in the way
A-
that you do with my
mhm.
guidance and my readings.
Absolutely. And would you like to share anything to our listeners about where to find you, or I mean,
Well, I offer free meditation on Friday mornings at 9:30, and I love doing that. We gather from all over the world, and it's a really heart-centered community. So that's one of my favorite places to hang out and meet people.
and we can join the membership through your website, which is your
Yeah, but
name.
that's not
Yes.
even a membership. That's free for anybody, anywhere, anytime. It's separate from
Oh,
membership. It's just free Friday meditations. You don't have to sign up for anything else, drop in
beautiful,
anywhere else.
beautiful.
That's on my website under free Friday meditations.
Yay. Okay. Okay. And also, just to say, Jillian, also her first book was called Deep Listening. And so, get them both while you're at it because
Mm,
we need your medicine right now. And I
mm.
feel the love in the pause, and I feel so heartened to think about incorporating more of this practice. And I just thank you. I hope you come back and talk with me again,
Yeah,
and
thank you.
to be continued. Thanks so much, my friend.
Thank you.